Hello and welcome to another episode of Square State Sandlot. I've got Raph joining me. I know in the description of the episode it says Kyle, but he got called into work. So Raph, thank you again for stepping in and saving the day so I don't have to ramble on by myself. And it's good to see you again. Thanks for coming on.
Good to see you too.
So obviously when Raph comes on, we talk a lot about the 49ers because that's his favorite team. So we'll talk a lot about that. We'll talk about my Raiders later on, especially with the move of moving on from Derek Carr. But first, I wanted to touch on a game that is near and dear to my heart, and that's taking place tomorrow, and that is the Wyoming Cowboys face the University of Ohio in the Barstool Sports Arizona Bowl. Uh, that game's kicking off at 2:30 tomorrow, which sucks because I'll be working, but I'll have my eye on it over in the corner. Um, Raph, I know you have some affinity to Wyoming just from living there for a year, but
Well,
are you going to pay attention to this game or no?
yeah, I'll watch. Like Wyoming was the first place I lived in the States, and then it was Montana and Georgia, and then back to Wyoming, but where I met Kyle. But
Yeah. So yeah, I'm definitely excited for this one. It's kind of curious, like what to expect in this game because University of Ohio, their starting quarterback's not playing in this game. And then obviously we know the entire running back room is now gone from the University of Wyoming, including I think their top two wide receiver options. So it went from I think Ohio was favored by like 8 when the line originally came out, and now it's even because no one knows what to expect from it. So um, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting, and Craig Bull's not tipping his hand on who's going to be the starting running back. So whoever it is, it's going to be their first carry of the season. So it's definitely going to be interesting, and that's all they do is run the football. So um, I'll be tuned in, obviously, but like I said, don't know what to expect. Even the guys that write for the team don't know what to expect. So should be a surprise, and it is going to be interesting because it's not televised on a traditional TV station. It's just going to be on the Barstool app. So I know my dad's probably going to be hitting me up at some point tomorrow trying to figure out how to watch the game. So preemptively, if you guys are looking to tune into the Wyoming Cowboys and Ohio game, you need the Barstool TV app or the Barstool app on your iPhone, iPad, phone, whatever of whatever type you have. So, with that being said, uh, do you want to jump into the Raider stuff right away, or
yeah,
what do you
let's
think?
start with the Raiders.
Okay, so the Raiders are obviously a giant shit show. Have been since I've been watching them. 30 years of dedication to commitment to excellence, but not really. So with the move that they made of moving on from Derek Carr, I put out a pretty lengthy article on. I wrote it Tuesday night and then scheduled it to go out on Wednesday morning. This was hours before they announced the move that they were going to move on from Derek Carr. But in that article, I kind of suggested what they should do going forward, and I kind of saw the writing on the wall in terms of Derek Carr. He's not performed well this season. And I don't want to use him as a scapegoat because I feel like Josh McDaniels has done him no favors. Defense hasn't been great. They've been playing a little bit better in the last couple weeks, but so I'm not absolving Josh McDaniels of any fault at all. But the way that Derek Carr has played this season, I mean, especially in that Steelers game, I mean, he had guys wide open all day and could not hit them. So I kind of saw that this was probably going to come just because he had the clause in his contract where if he becomes injured during the season, all of next year's salary is guaranteed, and then 7.5 million of the following season in 2024 was guaranteed. So I kind of saw this move coming just because they didn't want to be locked in if they're planning on moving on from him. Obviously, they don't want to have that dead cap hit of the guaranteed contract. So what's going to work out in Carr's favor with them making this move is obviously he won't be injured, and he has a clause in the contract that also guarantees that money if they have not made a decision on him by February 15th, I think, which is, I think, 3 days after the Super Bowl. So he should have some resolution to what he's going to do. And there's been a lot of rumors floating around that maybe he just calls it a career. He's obviously made quite a bit of money in his career, and he's financially stable. He's mentioned to beat reporters before that he may become a preacher because he's a very religious man. So I don't know if that's his plan or if he will accept a trade. He does have a no trade clause, so that further complicates things. But what did you think about the whole Derek Carr thing? I know you're outside looking in, but your thoughts on him?
Um, well, I will say that I read your article and then 30 minutes later, or maybe less, the ESPN notification showed up, but which I thought was pretty good. I I mean I don't really watch like any of his press conferences, so I don't really know that much about his attitude. Um, I feel like he I want to say he's probably going to stay in though. Like he's probably going to join the little quarterback carousel.
Yep.
Um, just because there's going to be a lot of movement. What like you talked about the last 2 weeks a little bit, like the Jets, um, 49ers most likely will get rid of Garoppolo unless
Yep.
he gets healthy and Purdy gets hurt. And if Garoppolo wins the Super Bowl, then kind of throws a nix and things. But I digress. I feel like Carr might still have something to prove. He's not been beat up too bad. Like I don't think he'll pull like an Andrew Luck or anything.
Yeah.
Um, Tua might, but
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting thing. I mean, he's had so many concussions this year that I mean, you hate to see him just keep running out there and keep getting them. Ultimately, it's his life, his decision, what he's going to do. But at some point, when you just keep getting concussions every time you get hit, it's not good for your long term health. So he could definitely retire after this season, and obviously that would be early. But they could be a team that no one thinks needs a new quarterback, but might be looking at in the offseason. So,
and I feel like there's plenty of teams out there that might offer Carr money or just a decent team where he can, make the playoffs. He might need that. So there's either playoff potential or money. I feel like he can get either still.
well, I mean, he's already under contract, so if they're going to trade for him, obviously, like I said, he's got the no trade clause, so he's going to have to approve it. So I think that's going to limit some of the options. Like I don't think he'll want to go to Indianapolis, even though they play in a dome. That's definitely a rebuild sort of situation. I don't think we'll see him go to the Texans, especially after his brother had his experience in Houston. But I mean, there's plenty of quarterback needy teams. You look at the entire NFC South. I mean, I think every one of those teams could use an upgrade at quarterback. Assuming Tom Brady's done in Tampa Bay, which it's looking increasingly likely that could be the case. So every single NFC South team's likely going to be looking for a quarterback. Then you have the AFC East. You already mentioned the Jets. Patriots possibly could be looking for a new quarterback if they don't like Mac Jones, what they've seen from him. They do have Bailey Zappi, so he could be an option as well. But the Jets make a lot of sense to me, but they do play outside and they do play in a cold environment, and Derek Carr has absolutely struggled in his career in cold environments. So I think that's why the NFC South makes so much sense for me. And, I mean, really, you throw them on the Saints, I think that instantly makes them a better team. They already have a pretty decent defense, have some weapons on the offensive side of the football. Carolina, another team that has a really good defense, has some weapons, doesn't have a quarterback. So ultimately, I think it's going to be who offers the Raiders the most. If he is going to continue playing the game of football, like I said, he could completely walk away. He's mentioned that several times. So I think he will be motivated to prove the Raiders wrong, so to speak. Even though he's had 9 years to prove them right, or make his mark on the team. And ultimately, he's had a couple good seasons, but this season is by far his worst since his rookie season, and that's not something you want to see from a 9-year veteran that should be in the prime of his career. So I think he's definitely lowered his value by his play this year, but I still think he's probably worth a second and a third, or potentially even a first if a team's desperate enough. So, but moving on from the whole where Derek Carr ends up, so I've been asked several times, well, what do you do after that? That's also included in my article. And anyone that likes the Raiders, I feel like you should just read that article and you can have my full thoughts on it, but I'll break it down at least. I put in the article 4 options that I think make sense for the Raiders, and ranking them 1 to 4. I had Tom Brady at number 1. Obviously, you're not going to expect him to play until he's 50, like Ray Guy did, or I'm trying to think who the other one was. George Blanda, he played till he was 50. But I don't see Brady playing more than probably 2 more years, and I still think he's effective. I think a lot of the things that are going on with the Tampa Bay team are because of the change in head coach. So I still think he's effective. Obviously, he knows Josh McDaniel's system. He played in it for, 13 years, something like that, before he moved on from the Patriots. So I think that would make a ton of sense. Obviously, if you bring Tom Brady in, it doesn't cost you any assets in terms of draft capital or anything like that. So that's not going to stop you from drafting a quarterback. And every one of these scenarios I said, 1 through 4, you're probably still going to end up drafting a quarterback except number 2. So your thoughts on Tom Brady? Do you think he's washed at this point, or do you think it makes sense for the Raiders to bring him in?
I mean, if that one article about, that, you're sticking with that,
Yeah.
if that's true, then I could see that being good. And, you've got, as long as, Renfro, stays healthy and Adams sticks around, and then Jacob. So it looks appealing to Brady.
Yep.
And like you said, he's got the familiarity with McDaniels, so the system could work for him. I'm not sure about your offensive line, or how are they?
That's definitely one thing that I put in there, has to be addressed no matter who they go with. But the main reason I have Tom Brady as my number 1 option is because he's never commanded a top salary, so he's not going to try to break the bank, and that allows you to build a team around him. So that would allow us to address the offensive line potentially. And then, like I said, it doesn't preclude you from drafting a quarterback, because he knows, I'm probably not going to be here another 5 years, so it's probably time to start looking at plans after me. But I also think, like you said, Renfro is his prototypical white guy, quick slot receiver that he just throws to every single time. Gronk has stated that he's getting pretty bored being retired, so maybe him and Brady could come to Las Vegas, like Dana White alluded to. He had lined up in the article you were referencing. So I think that makes all the sense in the world, just because it's going to allow you to team build. Plus, everyone in the league still wants to play with Tom Brady because he's the GOAT, So you can get a lot of those veteran players that want to chase a Super Bowl ring on team-friendly 1-year deals that go year to year, just so they can try to play with Tom Brady and try to win that Super Bowl. So I think, and Tom Brady, like I said, I know he's aged, but he still has a really good, long, deep ball. I mean, he's still got plenty of zip on his fastball. So I don't think the skills have diminished. I think a lot of the issues this year have been with, change at the head coach position. I don't think him and Byron Leftwich get along too well by the looks of it. And then obviously he's going through a pretty nasty divorce right now. So you would think his thoughts are probably not with the team at all points of this season. So I think he just makes so much sense. But I will give a couple quick insights to the other options I had on the table. And number 2, I had Mac Jones, which obviously you have to trade for him, but I don't think at this point with his antics and how he's acting with the Patriots, which I don't fully blame on him because, they have a defensive coordinator calling plays for him. So probably not the best setup, especially when he was, looking pretty good in McDaniel's system last year. But like you said, I think it'd probably be maybe a 3rd-round pick to get him from the Patriots at this point. And I don't think he's, better than Derek Carr, but I don't think he's too much of a drop-off, and he's still on a rookie deal, which if you look at if you go back 30 or the last 20 years, almost every single Super Bowl winning team has had a quarterback on a rookie deal. Or you have Tom Brady taking well under market value. So I think there was a couple like Payton Manning. He was making top dollar in Denver, but they essentially had already had a team built up. They were just a quarterback away. So if you have all that defensive talent around you, obviously you're going to have a decent chance. So Mac Jones, he would be my number 2, and he's the only one where I think maybe you don't have to draft a quarterback in the higher rounds, just because he's shown some promise. Obviously, he's taken a step back this year, but like I said, when you have a defensive coordinator and a special teams coordinator putting together your offensive game plan, you're probably going to have a step back anyway. So Mac Jones would be my number 2, and then 3 and 4, I just had 2 other quarterbacks with familiarity to Josh McDaniel's system, and that is Jacoby Brissett and Jimmy Garoppolo. Like you said, I think Jimmy G's probably gone from San Francisco. I doubt he sees the field again. I know he got his cast off today, I think I saw in the news.
Oh, I did not see that, but
well, yeah, I saw he got his cast off or walking boot, whatever he was in. So he's progressing well, but I don't know how you make the move to switch from Brock if he gets you, deep into the playoffs, then say, oh, Jimmy G with all this rust, let's put you in. But
yeah, that would only happen if Brock got hurt. So
yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking too. But the reason I put Jacoby Brissett above Jimmy G is just because of availability, and Jimmy G is probably still going to cost somewhat close to what Derek Carr is commanding on the open market. So,
and he's a little fragile. So
yeah, exactly. He's hurt half the games he plays in, and like I said, he's not going to save you any real money from moving on from Derek Carr. So I don't feel like he's a major upgrade. I think he's one because of the system. I mean, I don't want to say he's not a good quarterback because obviously he's won everywhere he's gone. But at the same time, I don't think he's elevating your team. As you can see, a rookie took over and is winning just like he was. So anyway, those were my options. And then obviously, like you mentioned, got to upgrade the offensive line no matter who they decide to bring in. Got to upgrade the defense. I did read an article today that basically stated Carr was like 12th out of 92 qualifying quarterbacks in the team letting him down essentially by not putting a good defense on the other side of the football. So I don't want to fault Carr for all of this, but at the same time, he's not part of the solution going forward. So that's why I'm ready for them to move on from him. So with all of that said, we can move on from the Raiders, and we'll talk more about them because we are playing you guys in this upcoming week, and I don't think it's going to be a pretty game. But let's just move on to some other news and notes from around the league. And I'm sure you saw that Nathaniel Hackett got fired in Denver.
Yeah.
So what do you think happens there, and what's your overall assessment of that job, and do you think it's desirable?
I mean, yeah. Well, with the desirability part of it, like other than last week where they got blown out, I mean, their defense is there. So I saw another post, like it was I saw it a few weeks too late, but if they had like their first 9 games, if they had just scored 18 points every game, they would have been eight
Yep.
and one.
Yep.
Those, but so the defense, it's good to go there. So it's not like there's too much work there, and they got Judy's pretty good, and then they brought Fant right from Seattle. He's a good tight end.
No, they traded Fant to
Okay.
Seattle.
Oh, okay. Wait, who'd they bring?
They
Um,
have that Dulcich. He's been pretty good at tight end. They have Cortland Sutton at wide receiver. They have Tim Patrick. So they've got a pretty good wide receiver core, but they're always hurt. So that's the tough part.
tight end too, but
I
like
don't
a
know. The only tight end I've seen playing for them lately is that Dulcich kid. Him and Russ seem to have a pretty good connection. That seems to be his only guy he's feeling good about. I mean, he's the only one he's consistently going to. So I don't know, man. I just feel like yes, the defense is good, and the reason they moved on from Hackett is because the team obviously quit on him. That game against the Rams on Christmas was very ugly. And yeah, I don't think you can defend that. I honestly thought they would have moved on from him after he lost to the Raiders the second time, especially with the Raiders struggling as bad as they had been. So I think it's probably overdue. But yeah, no, for me, this is probably the least desirable opening because of who they have at quarterback. He looks like he's 2 steps slower than he used to be and struggling to read defenses. Arm doesn't look as good. So with you, I mean, we've talked about it before.
I don't understand how though, because you know he always had the Niners number. Like that's every game I watch is like, oh man, I don't want to go against Russ,
Yeah,
but I don't know what happened. Maybe he just doesn't have enough oxygen up there.
he
Like
definitely seems to be lacking some oxygen to the brain when he talks. So um, he I think the signs were there that he was on the decline. I mean, if you look at his last 2 seasons in Seattle, they were not good. And obviously, you can blame it on the talent around him, but look what Geno Smith has done with essentially the same team. I mean, obviously, they got the rookie Kenneth Walker, but outside of him, the weapons on the offense are pretty much the same season to season. Everyone was predicting them to be second or last team in the entire league, and they're pretty respectable in that division. So I don't know, man. It's puzzling, but the fact that he has 107 million dead salary cap hit if they were to cut him, and that only goes down, I think, 40 million per season for the next 3 seasons, if I remember right. Like you're stuck with him for at least one season, but probably two if you want to put a team around him. So that's why for me it's probably the least desirable team in the league to coach for, even more so than Indianapolis, because Indianapolis at least has the salary cap flexibility where Denver's not going to have that. So and there's been obviously we're going to talk about Sean Payton, but everyone was saying that Sean Payton's going to go to Denver. I just can't see him wanting that job, especially with he wants Vic Fangio, and I can't imagine the Broncos would be ready to bring him back on.
yeah, that would throw kind of wrench in that. But like I don't know. I gotta wonder who's eyeballing. So he's got to have something in his mind where he wants to
Sean
go.
Payton?
Yeah.
I think he's just waiting for Dallas to have their inevitable first round playoff exit after the whole Weedham boys all season. Because if they don't advance into the playoffs, I don't think Jerry Jones is going to stick with Mike McCarthy. And Sean Payton's always been his favorite. He's from that area. So I think that would probably be his preferred landing spot. But obviously, there's only 32 coaching positions, and he's still technically under New Orleans control. And Dennis Allen hasn't been doing so hot this year in New Orleans. So there is the possibility he just comes back and coaches the Saints, but I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting to see where he ends up, especially if he takes Vic Fangio with him, because Sean Payton's probably one of the top 5 offensive minds in the NFL, and Vic Fangio's probably number 1 defensive mind in NFL. I mean, all of the successful defenses you see are modeled after what Vic Fangio did as a defensive coordinator in where was he last? Obviously he had Denver, but before that he was with, was it St. Louis? Or not St. Louis, it would have been the Rams, I think. Chicago? It was Chicago.
Okay. I was about to look it up.
No, it was Chicago, and then all of the Brandon Staley's that run a successful defense. I mean, he is from that Vic Fangio tree. There's plenty more of examples, but I think that would be a all-star pairing to have at the top of your organization. So,
well, I mean, the way the Cowboys game is going right now, with the Derrick Henry-less Titans, and I think it was 24-13 I saw. So they should have been blown out of the water.
Yeah, I think the spread went to 14 when they announced that Derrick Henry wasn't going to play in that, and it was 10-6 at half. But that's the last score I saw.
It's,
yeah, it's 27-13 right now. So
they must have just kicked a field goal.
Yep.
But yeah.
I mean, I would say more than half of the Titans' starting offense and starting defense is sitting this game out, either on the IR or just on the sidelines. They're preparing for their matchup next week against the Jags for the playoff position in the AFC South. But I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting how that division turns out, and yeah.
I don't think the Titans will be in the playoffs.
I don't think so either, especially with, Joshua Dobbs. He looks like he's better than Malik Willis. Obviously, Malik was a long-term project, not supposed to be flung into action. They put Ryan Tannehill on the injured reserve today, so it's going to be Dobbs in the matchup against the Jaguars. So, yeah, I don't have a good feeling. I mean, obviously, if they do their thing with Derrick Henry and he runs for 200 yards, maybe they'll get in, and their defense is good.
But the
Jags are just playing so well.
I didn't see why Henry was out today.
He's been struggling with a knee, I think. But, yeah, essentially, I think it's this game doesn't mean anything. Next week does. So let's get you as healthy as you can be so we have the best chance to win next week. So.
Got it.
Yep. So, Sean Payton, you don't really have a landing spot that you see for him?
No. I mean, I didn't really consider the Cowboys moving on.
I think it's a for sure thing if they don't go deep into the playoffs, because Jerry Jones is not a patient man.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see them going far because they're barely beat the Eagles without Jalen Hurts, and Dak had a fumble and 2 interceptions in the first half this game. So
yeah, he's looked pretty rough since coming. Well, I mean, he had a couple good games, but he's definitely been turning the ball over a lot more than they want him to.
They mentioned that. He has just as many interceptions, I think they said, as Carr, and played 3 less games than Carr. So
yeah, I mean, Carr is. I love the guy. I really do as a person, but he has not played well this season. And if you're putting up similar numbers to him and playing less games, that's not a good thing. So
But I
I
don't
think
know.
another pairing that probably makes a lot of sense for Sean Payton is Arizona. I think they've all but pushed Cliff Kingsbury out the door. I think that announcement will probably come. I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet, but I'm sure it'll come on Black Monday at the end of the season. Um, I think that's another spot that probably could make some sense. But the problem with Peyton is, like we mentioned, he is under contract still with
The
the
Saints.
Saints. So if someone wants to hire him as head coach, they're going to have to give up something to get him from the Saints. Sometimes it's just money, like the example we have of John Gruden getting bought from the Raiders to go to the Buccaneers and beat them in the Super Bowl. I think the price was like $10 million, and I think they gave us a draft pick if I remember right. So Sean Payton, I mean, like I said, I think he's one of the top offensive minds in the entire NFL, and Vic Fangio, if you pair him with that, that's going to be a pretty good setup going forward. So only problem is you have a 4 foot tall quarterback in Arizona, so who knows if he wants to take
And
on that. But
I mean, and like you were kind of talking about Mac and Zach Wilson like last week, I think, and their attitude. And from what I've seen, like Kyler doesn't have that good of an attitude either. So
no,
I don't know who wants to coach that. So
yeah. But I mean, you always see these coaches that think they can turn things around. They have the ultimate optimism in themselves. So, okay, so you guys are obviously playing very well. I think you've won what, 7 in a row?
uh 7 or 8.
Yeah, it might even be 8 now. Yeah, you're right. How are you feeling about the playoff run coming up?
Um well, because I like it seems like the Raiders are throwing it in, putting Stidham in there. So, and then we also are playing the Cardinals with the last game. And their Kyler's out. Um,
Trace McSorley is their quarterback now?
I think so. Yeah, because I think McCoy is hurt too or something. But
Yep.
um, so I mean, it'll give a chance for Shanahan to try some trick stuff, develop Purdy a little bit more. But there's not a real test, which I feel like he needs to be tested before the playoffs. He needs
Yeah,
to be brought down to earth. I mean, the Vikings, I've probably going to win out. I mean, they could lose
I
to the
don't think so.
Packers,
Yeah, I think they're going to lose the Packers.
and then Bears last game. Um, but I so if they lose to the Packers, but they beat the Bears, then we still have the same record, and I don't know who has the tiebreaker
You
after
guys haven't played,
that.
so I don't know. There obviously wouldn't be the head-to-head tiebreaker, and then I think it goes by um, strength of schedule if you guys haven't played head-to-head. So I'm just looking at their schedule, and I don't see very many good teams other than
I mean,
Bills.
you had Bills and Eagles, which
I
they
guess
lost.
Commanders are on there ish. Dolphins have a decent record, but I mean they've played, and then yeah, the Eagles, and then Packers. I think you guys probably have the more difficult schedule, if I were to guess. So I think you guys still have everything to play for. Um, I don't think you're going to catch the Eagles.
Oh, definitely not. I can't see us.
You guys would have to win out, and they would have to lose out. So I don't think they're going to do that.
No, like the Eagles. I guess it depends if Jalen Hurts comes back, but
He was
um,
practicing today, so I think it's probably trending that direction. But
yeah. So I mean, Minshew's good enough to beat the Saints, and then the Eagles finish the season with the Giants, and Hurts should be back by then, so they'll beat the Giants. So, where were we at? Our
just
chances.
yep, talking about your chances in the playoffs.
Purdy needs to be tested, which isn't going to happen with the last 2 games. I don't think. Um, other than, going to face the Eagles in Philly, like we should do okay. Like, if the Bucks make it in if they beat the Panthers, they'll make it in. The Vikings barely win their games. Home on the road doesn't matter. And then they'll be
That's the
going.
most baffling record to me. 12-3 with a what is it? Point differential of +5.
Yeah, it's
That's
they're
insane.
always playing from behind. So,
Yep.
I feel like their Vikings are going to get a home game, but I feel like they're going to lose. So whoever it is, unless
It'll
it's
be
like,
interesting. I'm excited to see how the NFC ends up because I think that Panthers Bucks game is going to be a really good one, and I picked the Bucks to win that division, but the way that they look and the way that the Panthers have looked, I mean, the Panthers have been hit and miss all season, but the last couple games they've played in, they've ran the ball really well and they've stopped the run. And Buccaneers do not have a rushing game at all. I mean, Fournette will break one off every once in a while, but he's playing banged up. So I feel like it's going to be Panthers out of the South, and then I still feel like the Packers are going to find a way to sneak in, which is crazy. But I feel like they're going to win their last two and just squeak in. I mean, I think they have to beat, let's see, Commanders have a half game lead over them. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I still think the Giants are going to get in too, but we'll see.
yeah, I mean, I would like to see the Lions in.
I would too, but they played so bad against Carolina. They got absolutely stomped.
Yeah, and then I mean they could beat the Bears next week, but then they finish the season with the Packers. So
Yeah.
that might be it. Lions and Packers, whoever wins gets in.
Yep.
That might be a matchup there. But I mean Lions scare me as a team for the 49ers to play more than the Vikings.
For sure. I've been saying this all year, and it's pissing me off because I pick against the Vikings all the time, and they should lose so many games, but they've won 12, so I'm probably like less than 500 at picking the Vikings this year, where if I would have just picked them every time, I'd have 12 wins. And speaking of pick 'em, we'll get into that a little bit in just a few minutes, so you can do your gloating. But no, I really feel like you guys are the team to beat going into the playoffs, assuming Brock Purdy can keep up his play. Shanahan always scares me because he's just like McDaniels, and when he gets a lead, he tends to take the foot off the pedal or tries to go absolute other side of that and just keep throwing the ball if you just ran out the clock. I mean, it seems like he has not great situational awareness when it comes to that, and it seems to get amplified in the playoffs. So
Yeah, that's what I think about when you were talking about that last week, I think, or the week before about McDaniels with blown leads and stuff. I'm like, hey, take the light off of Shanahan for blowing leads. So
yep.
like,
Yeah, that's the only thing that scares me but I mean, I felt like you guys were good, and then you added Christian McCaffrey, and if he can stay healthy, I feel like he's probably the secret sauce there to get you guys over the hump, because he's just been phenomenal. I mean, in the passing game, he's thrown a couple touchdowns, right? Thrown, and then caught a couple, had a ton in the rushing game. So,
especially if we get Debo back soon,
yep,
then
he was practicing too. So,
it takes the pressure off of McCaffrey. We don't have to overuse him. So,
yep.
And I feel like McCaffrey's probably not going to get that many snaps the next two games.
Yeah, no need to.
Mitchell should be coming back soon too, and then hopefully Mason's fine, and so.
Yeah, I think you guys could probably rest your starters and still win by 30 against the Raiders because.
Do you think McDaniels is going to try some new stuff with Stidham?
No. Well, that's the thing is at this point, he's had the excuse of, Carr's learning the system as fast as he can, so that kind of limits us. He's got no excuse with Stidham because Stidham's been in his offense since he came into the league. So that's where I'm like, I feel like McDaniels is going to try to get him to play out of his mind, but I don't think he's a great quarterback. And I think a lot of the guys that are in the locker room that respect Derek Carr are probably not going to give their best effort. I mean, ultimately, the guys need to play if they want to stick around in the league, because even if they don't want to stick with the Raiders, I mean, they're auditioning for 31 other teams to keep their job in the NFL. So I don't want to say they're just going to straight up quit, but I feel like if you guys get up by a couple touchdowns, it's going to be going into coast mode at that point, and I don't think it's going to take you very long to get up a couple touchdowns. So
Yeah. I mean, Purdy has a pretty good arm, and some of our, second, third string receivers, they've been showing up a little bit. So
Ayuk's been having a pretty good year.
yeah, yeah, and like Juan Jennings and McLeod, and so there's still some good guys there for him to
Well,
throw
and
to.
if you guys take care of Brock Purdy and he is what he looks like through his first, 4 games, 3 games, whatever it's been.
Well, yeah, like technically, well, starting three, but they should just give him credit for Miami.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's the ultimate setup, though. Like, he's a 7th-round draft pick, so his salary's like what, probably 900,000 for the first 4 seasons. So if you can get that guy and he can be the dude to just, even if he's not, the next Tom Brady or whatever, if he's just making the plays that are in front of him and not turning the ball over, I mean, you guys can build such a team around that. You already have the number one defense, so think of the weapons you can add around the rest of the team, like offensive line, defensive line, whatever you guys might need. Pay some of your linebackers that are coming up in free agency, all
we have
that.
to pay some people on our
Yeah, you
team.
got to pay some people for sure. But that allows you to do it if you have a rookie quarterback on that,
Yeah,
his rookie contract. So that would be pretty amazing. I think you guys are set up to, like I said, assuming he is the guy that he looks like, I think you guys are set up to have a pretty decent run over the next 3-4 seasons until you have to pay for him.
yeah. Or and then keep Lance as a backup or something, and
Well, and that's the thing is he's making a lot of money because he was, what, the 4th overall pick?
uh, yeah, I think so.
Something like that. So he's making a lot of money. So I almost wonder if they move on from him if they think Purdy's the guy.
Well, I mean, he doesn't have, like, Lance doesn't have a lot of games from college under his belt, so, and then he also just got hurt. So as far as like getting a good trade for him or something, I feel like it's going to be a little harder.
Oh,
But
for sure. It'll be hard, but I think there's going to be someone that, I mean, he went in the first round for a reason. If you guys don't need him, you don't want to just keep him on the bench and he's making 9 times what your starter's making. So I feel like it makes sense to move on if you think Purdy's the guy. You don't want to just pay someone to back him up, essentially. So because you can get, Jacoby Brissett or something, pay them backup money and have a decent option in case Purdy gets hurt. But I guess we'll see. Like I said, I don't want to crown him after 3+ games,
yeah, it's a little early still.
but it's looking pretty good through those games so far. All right, let's see. And who do you have? So I guess I'm just going to ask, who do you have in the Super Bowl based on how it looks right now?
So AFC, I would just say Buffalo. Like, I mean, KC, they still score points, but they also allow a lot of points. I want to say they're like in the bottom 10 for points allowed or something.
Yeah, their defense is not good.
So, like, and they'll get outgunned by, like, they just lost to Cincinnati like a week or two ago. I think, right?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think it was 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks. Yeah, you're right. Somewhere in there.
Yeah. So Buffalo's got like the second least amount of points allowed, per game.
Yep.
49ers are first. So
Gotta add that in.
I really think Buffalo's going to hold out. I mean, I feel like Cincinnati might be Buffalo's biggest challenge if they meet up, just because Cincinnati just seems to pull things out of nowhere sometimes. Like
Yep.
they don't have a lot, but they do a lot with it. So they're a little worrisome. But like the rest of the AFC, like they're all tripping over their own feet. Like they're supposed to win, but then they lose and stuff. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm cheering for the Bills for sure. A lot of the teams that are in the AFC don't scare me at this point just due to injuries or whatever. I mean, you got the Dolphins; they've fallen off so hard. I think they're
yeah,
0-4 in December.
two for the game and stuff. So
Yeah, Tua hasn't been playing well, and then you got the concussion injuries and all that. And then Ravens, I mean, they're 10-5, but they've looked pretty bad. I mean, especially with
I'm not
Lamar
sure if
out.
Lamar is going to play this week either.
He hasn't practiced at all this week, so it's trending for no. I mean, they're already in the playoffs, so they don't necessarily need to get him in there. But if they're going to run Huntley out there for a playoff game, I mean, I've got no confidence in them winning that. Patriots have fallen off. Steelers shouldn't have beaten the Raiders. And then you got Jaguars. They're the dark horse for me. I mean,
Yeah,
especially the way they've been playing the last couple weeks.
yeah, they are trending up. So like, yeah, probably Jags over Ravens or Chargers. So I mean, they're going to have trouble against Bengals, Chiefs, or Bills, but
Yeah, those three are definitely the top of the class in the AFC. And yeah, like you said, I mean, I think the Chiefs can beat anyone because of that offense, but the defense has been so suspect that it wouldn't surprise me to see the Bills kind of shut them down on, well, not shut them down, but slow them down at least on the offensive side. And then, I mean, you've got Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Singletary's running the hell out of the ball right now. Josh Allen's always running the ball. And then they brought in Naheem Hines. He's been having some good games lately as well. So it seems the Bills are definitely winning at the right time. You've seen them the last couple years. They've won at the front half, and then obviously the Kansas City AFC Championship game. Oh, no, that was an AFC Championship. That was divisional round. That was one of the best games we've ever seen. But hoping the Bills can win it all this year. Obviously, we got Josh Allen. But yeah, I think I have you guys representing the NFC just because Eagles have looked like the best team all season. But with the Jalen Hurts injury, like it's tough to get momentum going into the playoffs when you don't have your full team available, especially your signal caller. So
yeah, I mean, the Eagles have a decent defense. But I feel like the 49ers can shut them down, especially if there's some lingering from the injury
yeah,
to Hurt. So see how that
yeah.
plays out.
I think the Eagles probably have the best defensive line, but I think you guys have the best overall defense with cornerback, safety. You guys have linebackers coming out your ass, and then defensive line's pretty good too. So
Yeah, I have to keep an eye on the Eagles' offensive line. See how
yeah,
they.
I mean Lane Johnson, he's gonna miss. I think they said the first two playoff games if they make it that far. So he's a big part of their, and that's one thing. They've been healthy all year, and all the injuries are starting to happen right now. So that's why I'm like, you guys are playing very well. Obviously, you won 8 in a row, and not having too many injuries. So
Yeah, I mean, we were hurt earlier in the
yep,
season. Like that's why we got kind of blown out by the Chiefs and stuff. But now it's a completely different team. So from
Yeah.
that week. So
Okay. So I said we would mention the pick'em standings, and Raph is very happy about this portion. He's blown us all out of the water. He's got a 10-game lead over me, and I'm in second. John kind of quit doing his picks halfway through the season, so I didn't even include his, but Kyle missed a week. So Raph is leading with 151 total wins, and his win percentage is 63.45. We're just doing straight up pick 'em. No, we were trying to do the lines and all that, but we were all putting our picks in at different times, so the lines kept moving. So yeah, just straight pick 'em. 151, 87 losses, and then like I said, he's got a 10-game lead on me. I've got 141 wins, 97 losses, and a 59.24% pick rate. And then Kyle is sitting at 122 wins and 87 losses for an 58.37 percentage. So him missing that 1 week really hurt him, because if you miss at the beginning, it's not that big of a deal because you don't really know who teams are, and it's a lot harder to pick then. But later in the season, if you miss a week, you're missing out on probably 10 plus wins right there. So
yeah, definitely like a percentage point or two.
Yep.
To like boost you. So
yeah, the only way I could even catch up at this point is if I just started picking, like looking at what you pick and then picking opposite, and then everything breaks right. So I think we could probably just crown you at this point with a 4% lead, but we'll see how it ends up. And then I did want to mention that the Square State Sandlot Fantasy Football League wrapped up last week. And in first place, your boy Bill took first. That's me. Everyone was talking because I had a really good start. I think I started like 4-0, and then started having injuries and all that, so I dipped. Ended up 8-5, kind of just backing into the playoffs, and then went on a pretty good run. So I won that, and then in second place was Charles Atkinson, which is Kyle's brother-in-law, I think, pretty sure. And then Darren Cook, our buddy from Green River, he took third place. So I won't mention where Raph ended up in that, or Kyle. We'll say bottom half for sure, but
not last for
not
me.
last. Kyle might have been. Ever since they had their baby, he kind of quit paying attention to fantasy. So he was already pretty much out of it. So then he was like, I'm not going to pay that much attention. So
yeah, can't blame him.
You can thank old Jack for his finishing towards the bottom. And then just a couple notes I had on the A's. Haven't really signed anyone. They made one big trade, and that was for Sean. They traded Sean Murphy for a lot of prospects. But speaking of Sean Murphy, the Braves actually just paid him yesterday. Gave him a 9-year, $73 million contract. So it seems the winning formula is you wait till an A's player shows promise, trade for them and pay them, and give the A's a bunch of unproven prospects that probably aren't going to work out. And that's what the Braves have been doing the last couple of years. So they have Matt Olson, now Sean Murphy, and it sounds like they may be signing Chad Pinder as well, former A. So
as a Rays fan, they do that too. So
yeah, you guys aren't having a very good offseason from the looks of it.
It's hard for me to pay attention to all of that, just because like I have so many teams I follow living in so many places.
Yeah.
Like I'm also a Rockies fan, and I mean they're not any better. So
Nope.
It's
still paying Arenado to not play for their team.
Yeah.
They just cool.
The Rockies just have a way of pushing out the good people, to making them not want to stay. So
yeah,
I feel like
go ahead.
I was gonna say, because like I think there's last week's conversation about what is that, luxury tax and owners
Yep.
just wanting to collect a paycheck and just do the bare minimum to stay in the league.
That's what your and my owner, that's what they do. Um, and I think you guys are probably in the same boat,
Yeah,
especially with the
ways.
Yankees doling out all that money. I think you guys are probably starting to trade away proven players for prospects and start the whole churn all over again. Unfortunately, as an A's fan, as a Rays fan, that's just part of the deal. They're until they each get a new stadium, I don't see them investing a ton of money in their payroll. So they
Yeah,
hope.
I'm going to
They
mention the stadium thing.
have they announced something yet with you guys?
Um, no, there's still the talk about Montreal or like because right now it's in St. Pete, which is across the bridge on a kind of like a small island. Um, and they're trying to get it moved to the Tampa side, so it's easier for people to get to the game because they don't have to cross the bridge
Yeah.
with traffic bottlenecks and everything. Um, so it's just a lot of back and forth and kind of like the whole thing about who's paying for what. That's
Yep.
a big deal. It's like the Rays don't want to dish out all the money, and then it's like the
Of
city of
course not.
Tampa wants they want all the revenue from it, but they don't want to help. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's been proven that rarely does the public funds recoup what they give in these projects, and I mean, the billionaire owners don't really need the supplemented income. So it's I definitely get that it's frustrating for the fans, especially when they're talking about uprooting the team and taking them to another country. In your case,
yeah,
my A's, I mean, they've talked about moving to Vegas, but the Raiders already took up all the public funds, so I don't think they're going to get any money from the city of Las Vegas. So I think at this point, the A's are probably going to stay in Oakland. Howard Terminal, it seems like everything that I've heard about it makes all the sense in the world, but city of Oakland's not in a hurry to dedicate anything to anything, so it's just been a frustrating chronicle, and that's like I said, I don't think they're going to invest money into the team until they start or until they get that new stadium, because that's a new revenue stream that they don't have currently. Although John Fisher is probably top 5 in wealth in the entire Major League Baseball, so I don't think he has a real excuse to not, other than he doesn't want to. So
yeah, that's when I've seen like those $1 billion lotteries and stuff. It's like I would buy my baseball team.
yeah, he probably could for the Rays because they don't have a stadium.
Yeah, so like I feel like baseball. Maybe I could buy a team with that money, but kind of win that $1 billion lottery first.
That's the frustrating thing is John Fisher, our owner, he bought the team for I think 180 million when he bought it. I think probably 20-ish years ago. I can't remember when they sold it or when he purchased it. But because he's in Silicon Valley, I mean, the value of the team, even though he hasn't done anything with it, is in the 2+ billion range now. So I really wish he would just sell it and give it to like a Steve Cohen that wants to. I mean, Joe Lacob, the owner of the Warriors, tried to buy the A's before he bought the Warriors, and Bud Selig gave the nod to his buddy John Fisher, and look at the parallel past there. The Warriors went from the worst team in the NBA consistently to now they're at the top, especially in the value. And that's where the A's could be, but instead we sold to a tightwad that doesn't want to spend any money. So that's fun.
Well, hopefully people keep leaving the valley, and then the value goes down, and he sells.
That's the hope. But I think he's trying to just cash in on Howard Terminal and then sell it at the peak, because once they get their new stadium, that's obviously going to be as valuable as they will get. So Anyway, we won't bore you guys to death with the baseball talk. Anything else you wanted to mention before we jump off?
Um, no, I mean, I guess well, the coaching carousel is going to heat up, especially probably after Sunday.
Yep.
I feel like we'll probably see one or two firings after this Sunday, and then some more after the following week.
Yeah, it's going to be. I think there's going to be a lot of turnover. Obviously, the Colts have to at least go through a hiring process. I don't know that Jeff Saturday's necessarily the guy there. Cliff Kingsbury, we already mentioned him. I really wish the Raiders would move on for Josh McDaniels, but that's not going to happen. So there's plenty of teams that are going to be at least looking, exploring the options there. Texans, maybe. Broncos have already made that move. Like I said, Cowboys are probably going to make a move if they don't advance into the playoffs. And then you have the Bears. I think they're pretty happy with what they have. I mean, this is his first season. He's obviously put together a plan for Justin Fields, so I think they're probably going to stand put. Dennis Allen maybe out with the Saints. I think Steve Wilkes with the Panthers has done enough to secure that job full time, but they'll at least have to do interviews. And then Rams aren't going to get rid of McVay, but he could explore the broadcast booth like he has in previous offseasons. So
yeah,
it's a lot of openings there, potentially.
See what Baker Mayfield does.
Yeah.
The rest of the season. Yeah, because you mentioned Stafford maybe not coming back, but
he said he is, but I really think it depends on how his arm responds to the whatever he's going to do in the off season. I feel like elbow surgery, if you commit to that, you're done for at least a season. I don't think he can give up a season and come back. So if he's going to try to play through it, that's one thing. If it's nothing major, I feel like he wouldn't have been on the IR at this point. So I don't know. I mean, that could be maybe he's forced to retire, or maybe he has surgery and misses the entire season, and Baker Mayfield's the in place till he gets back. I don't know. I mean, he's played well for them. I mean, he beat the Raiders with 24 hours notice. So
yeah, it would have been funny if Odell had stayed on the team.
Yeah, that would have been great. That's why he's not coming back. But all right. Well, I think that's all I had. I did want to mention Pick'ems. We'll do this again next year, and we'd like to have more people participate. Raph obviously does it. John, I don't know. I mean, he's new job where he's working night shifts, so it's like we don't even see him or talk to him at this point. So he hasn't been doing his picks, and then so that brings us down to 3. So any of you guys that would be interested in possibly doing Pick'ems next year, we'd love to have you on. We basically just have one spreadsheet where we manage them all for ourselves. You put in your picks each week. If you aren't able to make your picks, we just put them as no picks for that week, and they don't factor into your wins or losses. But it's something fun we do, and usually we feature it a little bit more, but where everyone has been missing and whatnot, I haven't felt like necessarily putting out the picks for each week, but we could probably do that a little bit more next year. And then if you guys have any ideas for content, if you want to come on and talk with us, if you want to get in the chat, we always read those comments, maybe not on the stream, but usually on the stream. Love to see them in there. And then if you guys have some ideas for content we can do in the off season of the NFL when you don't have news every day to talk about, we'll probably slow it down maybe to once every other week or something like that. But anytime you guys want to get involved, we'd love to see it. So, Raph, thank you again for coming on. Appreciate you jumping in on short notice with Kyle getting called into work, and we'll definitely have you on again soon.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be talking about how good the 49ers are doing in the playoffs.
I'm sure we'll be talking about that. But thank you guys again for tuning in, and we will catch you on the next episode.